Deepwokens monsters. Non-humanoid and mostly unintelligent beings. Most monsters within the Deepwoken world lack major intelligence and are feral beasts, which are naturally territorial and hostile towards human life. Monsters consist of beasts, zombies, cybernetically enhanced beasts, aliens, and interdimensional terrors, as well as living constructs risen with the power of the song. Now that you understand what Deepwoken's monsters are, let's get into them in more detail. And also, I won't be covering any mini-boss monsters or monsters that just don't have lore. In the case of the golems, they're going to be in the bosses video in Duke's segment, so if you want to know about them, go watch the boss lore video. If you think I missed anything, watch the other lore videos or comment about it on here. Now let's get straight into it. First of all, the depths monsters in general are just the evolved version of animals which maybe once existed in the Deepwoken world. The Megalodon or Sharko, for example, were likely at one point normal sharks. However, being within the depths caused mutations to creatures that are born and are developing within it. For those of you who know about how aberrant capras are born through the depths mutating fetal stage babies, most of the depths monsters are the exact same, mutating through the song's power and the influence of the depths. Now, as far as megalodonts, they come in a few variants. The red, alpha, and mechalodonts are the main ones which are important to discuss. Now, alpha sharkos aren't actually born but are chosen within a pack. Sharkos, or megalodonts, are naturally social creatures, so they do have hierarchies allowing for an alpha to be established through strength. They are very territorial, attacking most non-megalodon creatures on sight, and they're actually kind of racist towards the red ones. A red megalodon is born when a megalodon is exposed to layer 3 of the depths, enchanting it with flame charm and giving it some sort of connection to the coral fiend. Most megalodons are sharkos, and alphas will attack the red ones on sight for being different, and it's unknown exactly why. And finally, there are the mechalodonts, which are cybernetically augmented megalodons, or Sharkos, experimented on by the Ignition Union to turn them into mobile weapons. The ones you fight in-game are only hostile because of a failed heist from the Summer Company on the Ignition Union, which caused their alarm systems to go off, making all the Mega Sharkos inside hostile and violent while patrolling Miners Landing. If you want to know more about this, go watch the Factions lore video. Next up is the Brain Sucker. While not having any specific lore, the creature's full name is the Lesser Brain Sucker. The original concept art, which I can't find because it's been wiped off the face of the planet, also depicts them sucking on heads, which they don't do in-game as of now. But the implications behind the name Lesser Brain Sucker insinuates that there is some sort of greater brain sucker, leaving room for a potential future boss or major enemy if we ever get flying stuff added to the game. Not lore-wise, but I think it'd be really cool if for like the greater brain sucker it would be like a boss fight, like a flying Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild boss, where you float up into the air and you fight it like you do in those games. You might or you might not know what I'm talking about, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. Next is the Thresher. Threshers are somewhat hostile but tameable wild animals found mostly within the Starswept Valley. Despite not having a lot of lore, they are generally extremely hostile towards the Stone Knights. Along with the Thresher, however, are the King Threshers, which are kind of like the alpha megalodonts in comparison to regular Threshers. Unlike the megalodonts, Threshers are actually much more competitive in their hierarchies and are a little bit less social, and they more so fight than Sharkos usually do. Now, the interesting thing is that part of the lore for the King Threshers is that there is an organ which is in a Thresher's neck. And a King Thresher is basically just a Thresher whose growth organ never gets damaged, because apparently most Threshers will have that organ damaged at some point in a fight with another Thresher getting bit in the neck, and that organ getting damaged will stop their growth. But if a Thresher doesn't lose that organ or doesn't let it get damaged, then over time it'll eventually grow to the size of a King Thresher, making them basically the alpha of their pack. And next up are the Stone Knights and Blizzard Knights. The artificial knights seem to be celestial in origin for a few reasons. First of all, they're some of the oldest artificial life, which we know the Celestials have had the power to create for a long time due to the existence of Lightborn, who are natural souls put into artificial bodies. Now, they also come in meteors from the sky, seemingly from the original Celestial Kingdom, implying that the Stone Knights were once guardians of the Celestial Kingdom before it was destroyed in the war against the drowned gods. Next up are the Lionfish. Not too much lore, but it's speculated, based on the Lionfish scale description, that they're the reason there's no deep sea fish in Deepwoken, with a description stating that they outcompeted many predatory fish species and were much larger than them as well, which is likely why we don't see any non-lionfish predator fish in game, with most of them now being extinct due to being outcompeted by the massive fish that can shoot lasers. And next up is the Deep Owl, which has some of the most lore out of any of the monsters, and they are one of 2 highly intelligent and sentient monsters in the game, and they're the only monster capable of speech in the entire game. They also have quite a bit of lore, as the creatures were initially intended to be very late game monsters only found within Layer 2 of the depths, before Layer 2 was the Eternal Gaoler concepted. The owls Owls are in fact not actual owls, but interdimensional horrors from a place where the human mind cannot comprehend. All of the owls belong to the nest mind, a semi-connected hive mind that links the owls but does not necessarily control all of them. Normally, hive minds in media are depicted or represented by multiple bodies harboring the same mind and will, but in the case of owls, they all have their own individual thoughts and minds, but are just mentally linked to each other. Deep owls are able to manifest in our world due to the nest mind's contracts with vision shapers. As the vision shapers use the nest mind's abilities in exchange for power, the nest mind is able to allow its owls to manifest themselves in our dimension, carrying their elusive abilities with them. It's also implied that while not all, eventually some vision shaper oath users will become owls with time, mutating into them with a great time under the nest mind. They also prefer to surprise their prey, acting friendly before attacking, and then once your back is turned, they attack you. Now, while not all owls are ex-vision shapers, it is potentially true that all vision shaper owls are the only ones that technically exist within our reality. Because normally, when you kill an owl, you're not exactly killing it because you can't destroy their souls, because they're only being kind of projected into our reality, similarly to the ferryman, if you know about that. But the ones who mutate into owls from vision shapers are likely to be physically existing actual owls within our world, you know, unless they go back to that dimension once they die. Next up is the King Gigamed, technically a boss, but barely so. The King Gigamed are responsible for creating the normal Gigamed or jellyfish. They also occasionally have a taste for fashion, as they can wear hats, and that's all. Next up is the Crustaceous Rex, or the Large Crab. This thing has one piece of lore, and it's the one piece of lore that this thing has is that the grab move that the crab has is canonically called Crab Crab. That's not a joke. Next up is the Nautilodont, or the Squibbo. These creatures are non-vocal, but are said to be very intelligent, knowing and practicing forms of martial art, and being capable of parrying. They are also naturally scientific creatures in nature, and they are hostile, but they don't choose to do so for survival or even sport. They instead prefer to experiment on the corpses of victims by injecting them with parasites within the dead bodies and seeing how they react, usually turning human bodies into mindless mud skippers. They also have an affinity for the song, much like intelligent life forms like humans do, capable of venting and sometimes even wielding attunements. Next up is the Mud Skipper Brew. These are large mutated versions of mud skippers, which are much stronger and much more durable. Despite the innate difference in strength and ability, they are not much, if at all, smarter than regular mud skippers. I personally think that these things are just made when a Squibbo kind of makes a mud skipper and puts a little bit too many parasites on it, and then, you know, it kind of just develops into one massive mud skipper. But after that could be the Mud Skipper Brood Lord. Now imagine the original Mud Skipper Brute, but on crack. They've gotten bigger, stronger, and have way more health, and now they can summon mud skippers as well as throw them at you. And they also have a status effect known as Brood Lord Rot, which infects people hit by them, reducing regenerative abilities, but not much is known about it as a whole. Then there are the Carbuncles within Layer 2. Now these parasites, which will look like snow, will eventually kill their targeted hosts. Once that host is dead, the parasites will take over that body, eventually sprouting internal structures to control the nervous system and using it as a permanent host and turning into a carbuncle, at which point they kind of make their own arms and legs, but they also embed their weird parasitic tendrils into the body of the persons who they took over. So while they are capable of using their own newly grown organs, they're also capable of accessing the organs to some extent within the human body that they take over, although they lack the motor functions and abilities of humans, being much less intricate and intelligent. Next are the Kiersguard, or Kiersons. They are generally sentient, intelligent beings similar in intelligence and ability to normal humans, although with significantly altered anatomy, being native to Layer 2 of the depths. Now, there are two types, and the monster versions are only aggressive as they are being mind-controlled by the slow passive release of mind-controlling gases secreted by the Scion of Etheron in an attempt to wake up Etheron's true form. If you want to know more about that, just go watch the boss lore video, because I won't be going over all of it here, but I do think it's really interesting that the Kiersons exist, because it means that life is capable of developing within the insanity and non-reality properties of the depths. Which, I mean, yeah, they look much different from us, but in terms of intelligence and ability, the Kiersons are not far off from regular humans, which is quite impressive. Now, I do know I said I wouldn't cover the golems, but I felt like it because apparently some people were confused about what I said in the boss lore video. I don't know how, maybe they just weren't listening, but I'm going to say it again just to make it more concise and clear. So the golems are created by Duke Arisia's Bell. Now, normally the golems do not have that white orb and energy within them, and they're not nearly as strong. However, using the Forge of Sin, Duke Arisia was able to transplant souls from humans into his golems as an energy source. Now, this energy source gave them certain abilities that they didn't have before, like shooting lasers, as well as making them significantly stronger, more durable. Basically, he amped up his golems because he thought they were too weak by putting people's souls in them. So normally the golems would just be gray and black, and pretty much everything you see that is glowing white on the golem would probably just be like blank or black, but that's all the soul energy flowing out of them. Anyway, that was all the important lore regarding every monster in Deepwoken. If I didn't mention it, it doesn't have significant lore. The purple crabs, for example, that I know someone might comment about because I didn't see in this video, do you really think the purple head crab that's inspired by the Half-Life 2 enemy has a lot of lore? The answer is no. They're just hostile towards everything for no real reason. And a lot of the monsters in this game are like that, because a lot of the monsters in this game don't have lore, with their only existence being they were created in the depths as evil monsters by Yun Shul, and now they just go around killing people, and they get to the overworld through the Parasol boss. That's literally it, okay? Now, I hope you guys enjoyed. Shoutouts to YouTube members Green, Pickle, Brick, Highcard, Goobka, and Drizzy Drake Fan. I love you all. Check out my second channel, my live channel, and have an amazing day, and goodbye.